6 to 7 hours. They start about 2 o'clock in the morning on Sundays, and stand in church 6 or 7 hours. On the holidays like Easter, they might go 15 hours in church that you're standing up, with a few occasions to sit down. They also have a requirement of fasting, and they fast on 4 very long, extended fasts during the year. Of course, the Easter fast, like the Catholics have. Then the Peter and Paul fast in June, the Dormition fast, the dying of or the sleeping of the Mother of God, in August, and then the Advent Christmas fast in November and December. Plus the fact that they fast also on every Wednesday and every Friday, almost every Friday, there are a few exceptions. But I counted up on this year's calendar, and this year for 2014, there are 193 days of fasting in the year, which is over half of the year. But this is fasting from animal products. They can still eat. They have potatoes and bread, whatever. But from animal products, they have to fast more than half the year. Then, of course, there are required prayers in the morning and the meals and others. And going into a person's home, they have to say a prayer. And also bows to the ground, actually literally down, bowing to the ground, which accompanies many of their activities in their life. Now, the old believers, of course, have continued as if that first slide, they continued to use the 2-finger desnica, it's called in Slavonic, the desnica, which is the way you form your hands in order to make a cross in front of your face. This was one of the reforms of the church when it changed in the 17th century. As one old man was telling me one elder was telling me in Woodburn, he says, we make our cross with 2 fingers here like this and the other 3 fingers here. He says, but when they had the reforms, they wanted us to do with 3 fingers. And he showed me with his left hand. He wouldn't show it to me. Yeah, and so there are some 12 basic changes from the old rite to the new rite. Some substantial changes. For instance, they spell Jesus, the name of Jesus, differently. It's they use 2 I's, Isus instead of Isus. The direction, for instance, of going around the church, or circling. Whenever you circle at a wedding, you circle the newlyweds, or you circle a grave, and so it is. They changed the direction completely. Instead of going to the right outside of the church, they go to the left. The reforms go to the left. So this is a startling change. And then, of course, the bows, they changed the bows. Usually people now bow from the waist in the Reformed church, but in the Old Believers Church, they still go. I demonstrate to you, but there are too many tables. So they also have a mandatory spiritual cleanliness. They can be very dirty if they want to, and literally dirty, but they have spiritual cleanliness by being true members of the Old Believer faith and obeying all the rules. Therefore, then they would be called in union. They are in union, and therefore that means they are more ideal, good, spiritually clean members of the church. The people who are in union then cannot eat with other people who are not in union. They cannot pray with those people either. And they have, when they have guests in their home, they will have them sit at a special table or a special tablecloth at least. And they will give them special dishes and special silverware, what have you. They cannot eat with them, so to speak. I remember up in Alaska, a man had fed me, and after he finished, he took my plates out and went out into the yard under the faucet, the hose faucet, and washed my dishes and put them back in the cupboard. So that is very, very strictly taken, even to this day. If somebody in the church falls out of union, doesn't go to church often enough, or maybe eats in a restaurant or buys food in the marketplace, they have to pay a penance, which is usually bows to the ground and prayers, and they also have to ask the congregation for permission to come back into union with them after they've stood their 40 days in the back of the church. They have marriages, wonderful marriages there. People in union get married, and they have 200 to 300 guests that come to these weddings. These are all other old believers that come, and these are traditional, old traditional weddings. They last 2 and 3 days, and they're very. I'm sure many of you have been to these weddings, and you've tasted the braga that they serve, and also the food. They're very generous. They also have, if you've been there, you'll notice that they have a separate table, a special table for those who are outside, who are not in union, and they have to sit separately off the table. So, as they themselves say, that it's очень тяжелый обряд. It's a very heavy religion. It's different. I asked, well, can people join the church if they want? An older person wanted to join the church. Yes, they said, but it would be better if they joined from childhood. They have to be raised. It is somewhat like a monastic rite, as a matter of fact. These people are living, going to church at night, and they almost all night, and very often. It's a monastic rite almost, except they still work and they still raise families, and it's amazing. They somehow are able to do it. I couldn't. Anyway, that is the kind of the religious requirements that are required. Then they have their secular life, of course, which is also blended with religious activities. But for instance, when they came, they had very, very large families, 12 to 16, sometimes 20 children in the family. That's not monastic, though. And then they work very hard. They're extremely good workers and hard workers. And so they started working on farms. They developed that. Then they were clearing trees in the woods, and they were making good money at that. And then now they've moved on, and they've come into construction. And as highly skilled people, they're very good carpenters and what have you. I think I've gotten pretty far ahead of you. So. Yeah. Oh, no, that's all right. That's good. Yes?
2-3 minutes.
2-3 minutes. Okay. Well, the secular life is they're language-wise, they're still lagging in education. The state law says you have to go to college, to high school, or to school. But they usually pull their children out after the 4th, 5th, or 6th grade. And many of them are still doing that. However, now despite the lack of education, they're still doing very well because they usually choose to go to skilled vocational training and get certificates of that for electricians, carpenters, things like that, and they do extremely well. A number of millionaires in the Woodburn community of old believers, and in the others too. They prefer to live in isolation and in remote areas, and as you know, there's a large community. This is the parent community in Woodburn, and there's a large community in Alaska. There's another large community in Canada, northern Canada, and there's a large community in Minnesota now, and in Washington State. But they run into a few differences and conflicts. Since they don't have a priest there's no spiritual authority that could actually make a decision, what's right and what's wrong. And so they make their own their things, and they have lots of differences and conflicts. One of the major conflicts was that in the 1980s, a group of strong elders, rich elders as well, decided that they really did need the priesthood. They should reestablish, after 360 years, they should reestablish the priesthood here in Woodburn. There are several other priesthood areas. And so they searched the world. They sent their pastor over to study a little bit in Brăila, Romania, where the Bela Crinița hierarchy is a priesthood, Old Believer hierarchy, and they have accepted now a priesthood in Woodburn. And that, of course, the community revolted against that. Marriages broke up because some of the partners didn't agree. The long-term friends from childhood wouldn't speak to each other after that, what have you. But it's finally calmed down to a certain extent now, and they rushed on to another conflict, and that has just been finished here in 2013, as a matter of fact. They've been discussing it a long time, but that has to do with a doctrinal issue on the way you form your hands. Because nothing changes to the two fingers. They're still two-fingered Old Believers, but the lower fingers are such. And it has to do with ancient icons. They want everybody to, in Oregon does like that, with the three fingers. But there are some icons, ancient icons, that have different, the thumb is here, there, what have you. They don't like that. They want to change that, and they want to correct these ancient icons by repainting old. They say that they're justified in doing that because those paints were already corrected by the people who made the reforms 360 years ago. They changed them the way they wanted them. So these are not really ancient, but it is a difficult one to get over, of course. But of course, now once again, the community has gone into a great deal of anger and what have you. They've broken up marriages again, and they've broken up families, what have you, because of these things. So anyway, that is coming right to the very end. I don't leave you with a negative because there is positive aspects to this. People on both sides of this is only the priesthood. The priesthood group, they say, no, that's Yurunda. That's nonsense. We don't even talk about it. But the priestless groups are having this conflict, and they are now getting more and more interested in the old Church Slavonic books, and they're trying to read the Church Slavonic books and learn more and more about their religion in order to justify the position that they are convinced about. And so therefore, you might say there is a revitalization of true Christian faith, you might say, by the groups as they try to justify their own place. And so I will stop with that.